Hey everyone, and welcome to GTM and AI Operators Show. I'm Akash, and this is in continuation of my honest attempts to sit down with different operators who are in the arena every day, building, shipping, servicing products and agents and services in today's world, which being shaped by AI. We'll unpack how they go about building, go to market, what's actually working and what's not. Today, we have a very special guest from Singapore, Nitya. Nitya is the founder of HeyAmos. Nitya, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Akash. So, really nice to join your podcast and thank you for having me. So, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Bangalore. And I would say a true Bangalorean in a lot of ways. After I did my engineering, I worked for National Instruments and I spent about close to 5 years there. I was a part of, the big startup boom that was happening in India around 2014, 2015. And I had the opportunity to work at Practo and really define like some of the strategies when it came to churn, retention, sales playbooks, and how to launch new markets. After a lot of 0 to 1 and 1 to 100 kind of situations, I joined Amazon's India ads team. My role was actually process excellence, and I had to figure out playbooks that scale. Like, how do we beat certain competitors when it came to monetizing traffic and driving value to a lot of our brands? How do you cement and sell brand ads, which are very different from sponsored ads? And then I moved to Southeast Asia, and this was somewhere just before COVID. And again, had the opportunity to work with a really fast growing startup based out of Singapore called ShopBack. So I spent almost the last 5 years at ShopBack scaling them, 13 different markets over the last 5 years. It's been amazing, humbling. I took a break to start my own company. I met my co founders at the Antler Residency, and HeyAmos was born.
Sounds good. Let's start at the beginning. You are from Bangalore. Your SaaS journey across NI, Practo, Amazon. Talk us through the arc. What did each chapter actually teach you, and how does that translate to how you operate today?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Honestly, one of the best things that happened to me when I joined my first company, which was National Instruments, was I realized that my interests were closer to the business than it was towards the engineering side of things. So, what that basically meant is eventually I went on to become a business lead, launching new businesses and so on. And I realized that it's very exciting to figure out how the technical side of things and the business side of things kind of come together and what kind of ops do you need to scale it. Once I moved to Practo, I think it was one of the most defining moments in my career because it was one of the highest agency roles I could get. So when I joined, actually, I didn't have a title. I was told you can take whatever title you wanted. Your job is to figure out, okay, well, scaling to one city a day and a lot of things are going to break. Can you just tell us which is the highest value actions? I'll give you a budget, go fix it. I did everything. I listened to calls with customer support teams. I went on sales teams and pitched the product. I worked with marketing, figured out GTM. I worked with finance to figure out what were the complications they were facing over a period of time. And I think within 3 weeks, I could come to a conclusion that one of the biggest focus areas that had to be for Practo would have to be retention related because it's just at the scale of acquisition and it was a pure SaaS play at that point
Mm.
of time. So that's when like I cut out a first cut of customer success and the whole point was to figure out what customer success needed to look like. Then I
Mm.
had full agency to bring in intelligence and data intelligence and to bring in tools so that you can predict when customers' retentions are falling off. It's kind of with a lot of data that you make decisions that, one of the most important points of retention is actually onboarding. If you don't onboard well, if your customer is not using the tool well in the first 2 weeks, then there's a very high chance that they will roll off. So it was just amazing to be in the driver's seat and try all these different experiments. And I must say, it was such a wonderful time in Bangalore because I think not only did I have the freedom to experiment, I suddenly found myself managing very large teams. But also, like, our customers were so nice to us, right? Like, very open with feedback, very detailed about like problems and conversations that they were having. So, that kind of opened me up to the importance of like really being close to the customer because if
Got it.
you're not catching those signals, then you're losing out a lot. Amazon was incredible after that, simply because, just watching them make decisions was such an honor. Because one of the things that Amazon does is they don't do slides, like everything has
Yeah.
to be written down.
Yeah.
And when you write down, you need to really think through whatever you're proposing. And the whole team sits for the first 15 minutes to just read what you've written. So you print a lot of pages. It's not great for the environment, but it worked at that point of time. So it was really about going in depth about what was the opportunity cost of like launching something. The pros was that error rates used to be so low, because even like I used to go on to manage, the Prime Day for the India ads business, right? And I had to figure out what are the ways that we can monetize. How do we stay aligned with what the Seattle team wanted and what the headquarters wanted and so on. But I think the most interesting thing is like the attention to detail, because in a startup, you're almost always like, you know, move fast, break things, change fast, and move on. Don't have that liberty at scale. So it was such a mix of things.
No, amazing. I think I somehow, not directly, but I worked closely with someone who was ex-Amazon and brought this culture into my first startup. I used to be a deck guy, especially coming from marketing, but this is something that I'm very much Google Doc person. I honestly, I haven't created a deck in the last 7 years or so. Like, it's always better to document it, and also you have to summarize, consolidate, and structure your thoughts, and be cautious of what you're writing. It's not just unnecessary writing, because you will lose someone's attention span very quickly as well. So I think it's a very, very good culture. I'm very happy that in one way or the other, it has impacted so many
I
people across
know.
the globe. Yeah.
And I really hope people still write those documents and don't outsource it to AI. For certain, like AI is great at editing, right?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
feel like if you want to ideate and have a judgment or a direction, you need to groom that data so much. And, I think it's just amazing, because a lot of times you're writing it, you're like, you know what, this is a terrible idea. No, it's not going to scale. I just know it right away.
Moving on, and as you moved on to Southeast Asia, Malaysia for nearly 4 years, and then Singapore, living in a country, it's very different from visiting. What did living in these two countries taught you or teach you, both at a personal level and at a professional level?
I would say that it was something that I needed at a personal level. What I mean by that is, I feel like when you're in India or Bangalore and you grew up in a very competitive space, let's say you went to college, very competitive, you finish your exams and then you kind of go out, it's very competitive job market out there. And I think in so many ways, we're just wired for competition. To an extent that, do you have a moment to like take a step back and say, you know what, I'm exceptionally good at these three things? Like, why am I following a path for these seven things, right? I think for me, Malaysia gave me that sense of break, because it was so different from whatever I'd experienced in Bangalore. My husband used to visit Malaysia a lot from work before that. I was at Amazon, their office used to be very close to the Bangalore airport. And I remember at that time, the flights were so cheap to come to KL. I would finish my work on, maybe somewhere on Friday, and then leave directly to the airport, show up in KL, and then, come back Sunday night, and things would continue. And I think I actually fell in love with that city because, one, the infrastructure is incredible. It's amazing to just have access to public transport and everything, and everything just works. And it's also so different because the food is different. It's so diverse. Like, what I love about Malaysia is there's so much diversity. There's like Indians, there's Chinese, there's Malay, and the food and the languages was just incredible. And I was like, when he asked me that, hey, do you think we should move here for some time? And I said, absolutely, yes. It was 2020 January. And at that time, I think I'd imagined my life to be, like where I would work really hard. And then, I would go travel every weekend. And we had
Yeah.
heard something about COVID at that time. But, there was these grand plans of living in Southeast Asia and traveling everywhere. And then COVID hit. I was very lucky to have worked with ShopBack Malaysia office, and was still very much like a startup at that time. It was a small team of maybe 40 people at that time across like customer support, ops. And my job was to scale operations and to scale process excellence, to bring in all the best practices that I had learned from Amazon and help ShopBack scale, right, at that point of time. It was amazing. Malaysia just forces you to slow down. I don't know how else to put it. I remember culturally, maybe one of the first feedback that I got when I moved to Malaysia and in the office was, hey, you're quite aggressive, like, can you And then I was like, oh shit, like, we do have like cultural nuances where we come off a certain way. You want things done in a particular way, like you're very particular and demanding about the way things are done. And you're like, okay, like I need to kind of center down, because if the person who's working with me is not able to make the most out of information I'm giving, then I'm not really doing my job. So I think I learned to mellow down a lot, and I learned to like manage the way that I work. It wasn't so homogeneous anymore. So I was just, the diversity is just incredible. And suddenly it opened my eyes that like you can have a wonderful working atmosphere, and it doesn't have to be aggressive and you're always on all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
and you get a lot of stuff done.
Oh,
So yeah,
there's something even when I was considering Singapore for my master's, I spoke to a lot of people and it was always like, I think Southeast Asia has a very good focus on eating clean. Everyone is very much focused on health altogether after that. Like there's a lot of running, there's a lot of cycling and
so
yeah,
I think the first thing when I moved to Singapore, actually the hustle culture is very similar to India. It's what I see in Singapore. One, because it's an incredibly competitive
yeah,
place. The second one is people are obsessed with health. So
yeah,
you feel very left behind. On Sundays, you just see people running on the
running.
street.
Yeah.
It's pouring, there's thunder and there's lightning, but you'll see people are running. They're in their gear. And, I just feel so lucky that I can be one of them now.
Yeah, even like when I was in Singapore and I was waiting for my tram or whatever the ropeway to Sentosa Island, and someone was just running bare chested on like the hill. And I was like, it's a very different point altogether. So it was ShopBack in Malaysia and Singapore was Antler, correct?
I was at ShopBack for 2 years, 2.5 years almost in Singapore. So
Okay.
what happened was while I scaled markets and led global operations, right, for the affiliate business in Malaysia, I moved to Singapore to help focus on strategic action. Interestingly, there's a lot of link between what I did at ShopBack when I was in Singapore to what led to Antler,
Okay.
because a lot of my work focused on, like we want to get efficient, we want to get leaner. The whole point is, hey, if I have to run our operations efficiently, then what kind of approaches would we take? And for me at that point of time, it was like you want to cut processes that don't add value anymore. Like, let's say you're selling to a certain segment and your margins are incredibly low, but there's so much sales effort going into there. You're like, let's just eliminate that and see what that happens. So those were the kind of like opportunities that I worked on. And I think for operations, a lot of it was, there was some incredible amount of manual work when it came to entering, like handshake between sales to ops to marketing to getting a campaign up and running. And what I had done at that time is kind of used AI. Of course, this was like 2025 mid. You don't have the Claude that you see
Yeah,
in
it's
April
chat GPT era.
2026. So I would say this is like Gen 2 maybe. But that was good enough to like move things so fast ahead. What I did was converted it into a floating database, and the teams just got information on a Google sheet and everything went into the database at the back end, and it had its own, checking and correction. And I think if I remember right, if I check class, like we saved like almost 20% of their bandwidth from pure manual data entry. And it was all of these opportunities in which how can I free up time for teams to focus more on where they can add a lot of value, right? And I think that's when I realized that there's so much potential on the AI space. The way that we search, the way that we make decisions, the way that we've been outsourcing a lot of like consideration and evaluation of products and approaches means, like we don't search the way that we search on
Yeah.
Google anymore. And that's when I was like, okay, let's go figure out what needs to be done about this. And it's a business opportunity.
No, I think we are leaning into it, but at some point, like, I think this is exactly the point where you're like, for our operators, and I think that's why the show is called GTM and AI operators. You are an AI operator and now you're building a business. At some point, the founder itch kicks in for most operators, but most people don't act on it. Like, walk us, like you were just talking about how that idea come in, walk us through the idea. How did it come in? How did it shape for you? And at that point, why now was the right time for you to act on it?
I think I wish there was a crystal clear answer, but I think in life, sometimes you just jump into it and you swim and you figure it out, right? I feel like we want to be as practical and analytical with every decision that we make, but sometimes it's just gut feeling. What happened was maybe when I worked at Practo and ShopBack, right? I was quite founder adjacent. So I worked very closely with founders. These were places that give you enormous amount of agency. The buck stops with you. It doesn't matter if there's a problem in engineering, finance, legal, HR, doesn't matter. Like the buck stops with you. So for me, one of the things that working in very high agency companies did was you're never limited in your potential skills or resources. The second thing is I've done very different work right from my engineering all the way till the end of ShopBack. So for me, working with ambiguity was very easy. Like you throw me into a problem, I'll swim, I'll figure it out. If I'm not from that sphere, you can always figure things out first principle. So, I think the high agency environments kind of force that out of you. So for that, I'm very thankful. What happened was I felt like maybe after 5 years at ShopBack, I felt like I've come a full circle. Like I've scaled, brands across multiple countries, scaled operations, built a lot of operations excellence. But it felt like what changed in the last 12 months, especially with the AI landscape moving so fast, was I thought it was an enormous opportunity to be a business owner simply because of the fact that you didn't need to rely on so many people to run a business.
Yeah.
I think the second one is you want to build a business in which you're the boss, and your co-founder skills kind of compound on you. So when I left my job at ShopBack, I didn't have a backup plan at that point of time. Like for the first time in my life in 15 years, I didn't have a backup plan. It was scary because I always have a backup plan. I have plan B, plan C. Like I am the kind
Yeah,
who's
I am
always
also one of those people. Like, there's a plan B, there's a B dash, there's a B double dash. I operate that way. Like, okay, if this doesn't happen, this happens to 60% level, then what it means if, like, what's the fallback of this? Yeah, sorry for
exactly.
the inter.
I think it's both a strength and a weakness. It's a strength because you plan for contingencies, right?
Yeah,
Financially, you plan for contingencies. Emotionally, you plan for contingencies. So nothing catches you by surprise. But it's also a weakness because your one foot is always out. Free fall is a very weird kind of
yeah, yeah. It's
situation. So I took a trip. We went to the UK. I spent 2 weeks.
okay.
And for the first time, I had no Slack notifications, none of that, right? Like it was such a bizarre feeling coming back home and not having a plan B. And it was amazing because all I did for the next 1 month was meet people. I met people in all walks of life. Like I met people who are also on a career break. I met people who are like at the peak of their career. I didn't have a job or a title or any of that ego stuff, right? So it was just nice to like take some time and figure out what people are up to. I spent a lot of time hitting the gym, getting myself fit. And then, I started building solo because I was like, okay, this is so exciting for the amount of things that you can do with AI. A lot of the ideas that I had, I started seeing similar companies that started getting funded from YC, for example. And then I was like, okay, I'm onto something. And then I was like, what I need is a co-founder because building solo sucks. So yeah, I met my co-founders at the Antler Residency in Singapore. That's
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. Let's come to Antler for people who are listening and don't know, is one of the most respected early stage programs. I Can you give the audience a proper look of the Antler residency program, what it does to a founder, how does it test you, and honestly, whether you and it could be that it's not for someone, but would you recommend it to people and what sort of people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know that Antler has a lot of residencies in different parts of the world. I know that they have one in Bangalore, they have one in Sydney, one in UK. So the one that I was in Singapore, they're also like their main branch is also in Singapore. So they have a lot of folks who fly into Singapore for the residency program. The first thing that hits you is it's so diverse. There are at least people from like 30 countries out of the 90 in that batch were there, if I'm not mistaken. Suddenly taking a moment, you're like, my God, this is diverse, right? And the second thing that hits you is everybody is coming from such different backgrounds, work experiences. Some of them have exited companies, some of them are just building it out. Some of them have always done this. Some of them are kids who just graduated
Yeah,
from college. And then there were people like me who've spent 15 years scaling businesses. It's just a melting pot. So I think first of all is right for a residency like this is if you're genuinely considering building your own business, it's okay even if you're not thinking of a venture backable business. I would still recommend doing the Antler cohort because it opens your mind in a lot of ways. I would say Antler is not for folks who are looking for a full-time job or who don't want to take the burden of starting your own company, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done. But it's really somebody who's reached at the stage saying that, okay, I think I will dedicate myself for at least the next couple of years to try this out and see where that goes. So that's really essential. So I think what Antler did for my batch is that there's a lot of socializing in the first week because everybody's trying to find each
Yeah.
other's founders. And it's beautiful because when humans are trying to match and find co-founders, there's sometimes we look at all the wrong signals, right? We look at, okay, is my resume matching? This guy's resume looks awesome. I want to be his partner, but guess what? Together we work terrible.
Yeah.
Or let's say, the egos don't
Yeah.
match. A lot of stuff can happen. Or let's say your work ethics are completely different. Sometimes your values are completely different. It's a bit of a gamble, but the whole residency is 10 weeks. So in that 10 weeks, you're supposed to find at least a co-founder. You need to figure out what ideas you're working on, finalize it, go test it in the market, pitch it to a whole bunch of partners. And if they like you at the end of the 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. I have two co-founders that I met at Antler, and we matched based on values actually. So we realized we had very complementary skills, but we were very aligned on values. So we did a lot of things, right? Spent a lot of time looking at ideas and seeing how fast we can go execute and, validate in the market. So this kind of tells you how each person works, how fast they are willing to move, how fast they can get things off the ground. So it helps you really test people. So that's what happened. Luckily, like we met on the second or third week at Antler, and somehow we continued being a team because we found a rhythm that worked for us. And hey, born in that process.
I actually relate to it, and I was at Entrepreneur First in Bangalore. And
Yeah.
it was a very similar, like I thought, like, because in a company when you are a high performing person and you think like you are really good because you get appreciated left, right, and center, and you feel you're really good. And I went into that program and there were like
Yeah.
40 of us, like they're exited founders. I had tech people who had patents, people who had like PhDs. And then you realize that like you work with so many people. For me, it did not work out. I had three different like teams and we broke up. And then by the end, the idea that we pitched it didn't work. But my general observation is that everyone should do it once in their life. It's a really beautiful experience. Like, first of all, it takes care of the finances, the bills for the time being. It's not that you're taking a huge risk. You realize things about yourself that you may actually do not know just in
So
those 3 months, 10 weeks program. Like,
what did you realize, if I could ask? Like, what are things that you were like, okay, wow, like this
so
happened?
So this is something that I realized about myself. I was also trying to do like a perfect match because I came from B2B, HR tech and fintech. So this is something I realized that I wanted perfect deep tech founder. But the value thing was I was not able to pin it down. Obviously, this is 4 years, 5 years ago. It was in COVID. So this was something that I was coming across every single time, that call it values, call it vibe, call it ethics, whatever. That this is something that was not matching every single time. Like I tried with, it was not like a paper to paper match that you could try and it could work out because of the common B2B building in B2B or selling in B2B experience. That something was not happening. And some of the times I had to wait, like because someone I really, I think, bonded with, but they are paired with a right now different founder. So I had to wait for like at least for them to get successful or for them to decide that they are now again back for matching. So those are some of the things I paired with. I actually, coming from B2B SaaS, I tried to build something for influencer marketing, which was totally consumer side of it, which, so that is something that I realized that I do not have to be stuck to B2B SaaS, typical B2B SaaS coming from, and I had to build definitely because I was really passionate about it. That was, I think, my second pitch. The third pitch I pitched in B2B SaaS, it was, but that is something that I realized about myself that it's not what I have done in the past. There's a whole new world of things that I may be interested in, I may like doing more. And I think if I didn't realize it, then I would never be today what I am doing. Like YouTube for someone is not something who is a typical B2B marketers. There's like 1 in 100 go ahead and do these things. We choose B2B because it's boring, it's safe, you don't have to work on weekends. It's a simpler life. You get Diwali's off, you get the Christmas off, you get every off in the world. So that's the reason I realized that maybe there is a side of it, which I realized back then to be more like open to stuff and like deep technical products that I never thought. Like I always thought B2B SaaS products to be like integration layers or like productivity softwares, and back then most of them were productivity softwares, like helps you solve one problem of someone's job. But then deep technical products, speaking to founders who have like spent solving one, like people with PhDs and patents have spent 10 years on just one problem. So how do you commercialize such stuff, like things, unsexy things like solar, biotech, food processing? These are stuff like that you do not hear in Bangalore. Like, so these were some of the things that there's a whole new world around that. So it was a very, very good experience. I think dots connected. I'm very happy where I am. I've all very good friends doing very well, got into YC, raised funds, building, some of them shut down. So it's a very good network and high agency people that you meet and really do well with. Now, yeah, let's get into HeyAmos. Like we have arrived to the point. This is a space, obviously, I'm personally most excited about, and it's also a space there's a lot of noise. Tell us about the real finding story. Why him, or why this category, and why at that point? Like,
at Antler, I met my two co-founders. They're my co-founders now. They were people I teamed up with at Antler at that point, right? Going into Antler, at first, one of my ideas was about, because I'd worked so closely in the e-commerce and the marketplace space, I wanted to build a way that you can run a marketplace business with one person. And I knew exactly how, because I've seen this, I've lived this problem at Amazon and ShopBack, and my co-founders were very interested and also locked in on this idea because they were interested in the B2B side. Now, very interestingly, we were having lunch once and we were just talking about what's happening in the world, like banter. And then, we were talking about how like our behaviors have changed, how I'm trying to use ChatGPT Atlas to like book my, we want to go to a vacation in Bangkok, like it's booking my Airbnb. I wanted to shortlist the Airbnb at least so that I can decide and then book, because I don't want to waste bandwidth looking at the options. So I'd given it a lot of criteria and we were having this conversation. Now, I come from marketplace space. I've worked very close in like the travel business with ShopBack, and I know my behavior is changing a lot. Like, and it's kind of like agents are making the decision. And if my agent is not finding the information that it needs to make decisions, then too bad. You're not in it. And at that point of time, right, I was running a lot of experiments and I'm like, okay, let's see if I want to book boutique hotels in Japan. There are these very independent hotels. You'll not find any of these Hilton and all of these guys. You'll find very bespoke ones. And then I went deeper to figure out why this is the case, because, they had mentions in like blogs and like that. And then I'm like I'm very close to this industry and this is so interesting. So I was just chatting about this. My co-founder, so he's been a CMO at a whole bunch of marketing companies in the past. So he's been a B2B SaaS marketer for the longest time. And he was saying that, like for him, I need to be where my users are. And it's like, no matter which way I look, all my users are on LLM. So I need to be on the LLMs. And then my CTO, our third co-founder, Ruben, he has actually built marketing tech products. Like his past two products that he built or businesses that he built were marketing tech. Like he's been a founder like through and through. Oliver and I come from like a little bit of a corporate background, right? And for him, he was like, this is the hottest space right now. And like we see all of this and we're like, we realized that the energy in the room between the three of us just went up so high. We're like, okay, maybe there is something here. So we gave ourselves 1 week to go see what is the state of the market, right? Like we'll go talk to people in our networks, reach out to people, interview as many people as possible to understand if they see the same shift that we are seeing and can they name one tool that can do what we are doing. We spoke to maybe 45 people in 1 week. That is the power of working in an accelerator, right? If you worked in a company, you would have phased this out. But here you just move as fast as you can. And what we realized is that one person could name one tool they could use. They're like 100% my search traffic is starting to drop. All my customers are here. I just don't know how to show my budgets. I can't track anything. Everybody's going here. My search traffic is failing. It just doesn't make sense. Like my metrics, my KPI, everything is broken. So then we are like, this problem is very, very new in the market. Even though there were one or two other companies that focused on analytics that were launched before us, they were not on first name basis with a lot of the customers we spoke. And the customers we spoke to were a mix of enterprise to B2B and mid-market across Southeast Asia, India, the US, and Australia at that point in time. So we had a good across.
Got it. I think amazing because that's one of the things. At some point, you get that conviction. It just happens, and it's like the intuition and the data and everything just aligns, and you just
Can
start
I tell
thinking.
you something cool that we did?
Yeah,
So I vibe coded what our tool would look like in the future. So every one of the 45 people I went to, I had vibe coded a tool for their brand, right? To see it's going to look like this. Will you pay money for this? Everybody said yes. So that's when I was like, okay, so they're
yeah,
willing to pay money. The vibe code that I did like overnight kind of works. Okay, there's something here.
yeah. I don't like at some point you start seeing the pattern. It just starts to happen. Amazing. Nitya, you are building a company in 2026. It's very different from how companies used to be built in 2020 or even till I would say 2024. What does it take to be a founder right now? What are certain things that you're doing differently, and what are certain traps that you're consciously trying to avoid in 2026?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we are seeing is that the way B2B SaaS companies were building before, and we've all been users, I've sold, I've scaled these companies, right? Is so different in 2026. Okay, I'll give some examples, right? In the 2015s, when I was trying to scale a SaaS product, the whole focus was, hey, what are my daily active users? What are my monthly active users? Who's logging into the tool every day, and it was all about like the UX and these beautiful dashboards that you see and so on. And then fast forward now, everybody has Claude or ChatGPT, and my thing is, I believe the future of software is headless. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two is the fact that we're at a good space in which you can pay as you go at any point of time. Like if you want X delivered to you, you use whatever you need, you put together, and then right? If I don't integrate into your workflow, I there's no stickiness. So, and the best way to integrate into someone's workflow right now is to have your MCP or have your connectors, have that accessible so that people can merge data. We have so many customers who use our MCP server, merge it with like their super big data, and then run things. So those are a couple of things. The second one is this massive focus on being lean. I think in the past, or maybe because it was a heyday at the time you are funding, the first thing you employ when you have funding and hiring people on your team. Like you always throw at the problem. That was what you did in 2014, 2015, right? Now it's not viable. Like execution is so easy to do. We wear multiple hats, right? I'm the finance guy, I'm the ops guy, I'm the sales guy, I'm the investor point of contact. My co-founder is a product guy. He's the CMO, he's the influencer marketer. Like he goes finds influencers and figures out what to do strategically. So we're all doing multiple hats. So that's been very interesting. I think also like the lot of hype in the market, and there's also a lot of skepticism in the market simply because it's been changing so fast. Okay, like for example, I remember pitching to me a tool maybe a year back that'll help you put emails to AI. It was Gen 1. And that time you're like, my God, and how did these guys get funded? Like, and today it was just a wrapper on top of yeah. And I think investors are also very scared that, hey, are you just another wrapper? Can some kid vibe code you over the night and then you don't have a business anymore? Because I think the effort that was needed to build code is not the same anymore.
Yeah.
I think people valued code very differently 10 years ago was now. So yeah, definitely. I think the second thing is the tools we use has changed a lot. And I don't remember using any of the tools that I used from like even 5 years ago. Name some, right? Whoever has connectors, I use those tools quite, like Granular pulls in with my Claude kits. And then it knows, hey, these are the things to prioritize. These were the big focus areas. This is what I need to push into this deck or the strategy and so on. So everything is kind of organic. Like information comes in and then you assimilate it together and then you go. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing. The other thing is we could go global from day one. So right now, AMOS is in 10 countries. So we're in APAC, obviously in India, we're in the US, and we're in Europe right now. So where countries were 12 weeks old, so that would have been unheard of couple of years ago to just figure out how do you launch a new market, how do you get to a new market. So that's been very interesting. There's also been a lot of competition because Claude keeps releasing something new. So you constantly have to prove yourself that hey, you have a moat that Claude will not outbuild
Yeah,
you at
yeah.
point of. I think those existential crises will continue to stay, but I think it's all for the good.
I think this is the most exciting and terrifying time to be a founder both ways. Like that's
Yeah,
how like I think Salesforce just went headless. Like, can you imagine that?
finally, finally.
Yeah, like it's just it's that's the thing. I was just speaking to someone and it is the same. It's the most exciting and terrifying time to be both a founder and an investor in today's market. Like no one knows, but you just have to keep
Yeah,
executing, getting better, upskill, and
totally.
go deep and keep delivering.
I worry more for the like Salesforce. Their entire business model will have to change because they went like once you go headless, it's like I no longer care about seats. I care about data. I care about information going in. It's kind of
It's a transformation journey that all of us are going through. And
yeah,
I think for me personally, like I think, and I'll just like maybe from a personal note, I think it's a very bad time to be an employee. Like honestly, you may not be a founder because as employees, like even at high agency, once you look up to your founders or the investors or the ecosystem to give you answers. Right now, no one has any. So it just feels very like because when you're in an employment mindset, you will think about financials, you think about security, you think about rewards, and like
yeah,
there's different kinds of rewards, not just financial altogether. You think about valuations, you have stock options attached to it. But at this point, it's very all over the place. So every time I meet someone, they just feel very lost. Like what the because obviously as employee you are not at the helm of it, so it's not that you have that amount of exposure about everything, but you feel very lost. Yeah, that's what I think it's, and that's why it's the flip side of it. It's the most exciting and terrifying time to be a because the
100%.
upside is very huge at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The core thesis behind AMOs that user behavior is fundamentally changing and it's shifted, which I 100% agree. And marketing teams haven't caught up till this point. Walk us through that shift and what is the buyer or what is the user today doing that's fundamentally different?
Let me give an example, right? Like my real example. Like when I started a company, I needed to figure out which was the right bank for me in Singapore.
Hmm.
Okay, so first of all, how do I get this information and how do I decide? Okay, if I have to go into Google and click on 10 links, I do not have the time or motivation to do that because to open a bank account, it's almost the same. I care about a few things, right? I care about exchange rates. I care about the fact that hey, we founders should have access to like create these virtual cards that we can use to buy like our SaaS tools and so on. Yeah, and have like regular reporting. We don't need a lot at this stage beyond that. So we're very contextual. And for that, I'm not willing to spend more than 30 minutes making this decision. Like that, I'm very clear. So in the past, you'll go through Google, there'll be some sponsored ads, there'll be 10 links. You're like, oh, this is one, this is one. But how do I know if this is the right one for me? Then you'll go look for reviews and then you'll compare somehow. And then you'll ask a friend and then you'll be like, okay, so maybe I should go ahead with this. But what we simply did was, see, these are the three banks that I'm thinking of. I don't know which is right for me. This is my context. I just raised a pre-seed. We're three founders. We want to go global. We're seeing a lot of demand, which means exchange rates, foreign exchange rates matter a lot to us. You know, it should have Stripe integration to get a payout because our backend is all Stripe. So that was it. And then it said, okay, this is your bank. And then I looked at it. I was like, okay, checks. I went and applied for it online, like done. Like imagine you were a third bank that also did the same thing. And we know there are a lot of banks that help and a lot of neo banks who help you with like very low transfer rates and so on. If you weren't in the selection, you were not even in my mind. Like in the past, you would be a part of a consideration set where I would have at least seen your link and then decided to skip you or use you. And you could measure all of that. I think, yeah, no, it's just that, you know, brands now are seeing a lot of like zero click searches, which means somehow there's a lot of transactions coming, but they can't figure out where it came from. And that's where like the whole way that we search, we decide, we buy, the way we track has shifted.
Understood. No, and if we go into the depth of it, like there's like a lot of noise about whatever it's being called AEO, GEO,
Yeah.
like there's a whole new world. But inside of it, like what is the mechanics? How does it work? Like how does this entire thing works in the background? Like can you can share some light for
Yeah,
the listeners.
sure. I think one thing that's I think a lot of folks have been using AEO GEO, but I think now that I'm deep in this problem space, I realize that it's a small portion of the opportunities that AI search has. What I mean by that is, like AEO or GEO was formed in a way to like upskill SEO folks, because now that search traffic was dropping, here there were a lot of ways that you could kind of structure your website and your pages so that it's easy for LLMs to read you. It means things like, hey, having a technical schema, allowing robots to crawl you. It means having FAQs, very clear question answer defined. It means having a lot of content that can emulate how users may ask questions about you, right? So there's this volume of content that started coming out because what worked for SEO with their backlinks, their priority was to rank on web pages, but this is a whole other playing field, right? One of the things that we notice is with HeyAmos is because we go very deep into the analytics and we go into every single API response and really try to study this and look at patterns, is the fact that what AI does is that it synthesizes thousands of sources at once. If I have to compare what a human did, a human looked at the first page of Google, probably read the first 10 links and made a decision out of one. But AI is not doing that. It's looking at 1,000 sources together and figuring out what is right. And out of these 1,000 sources, some of it is data that it's already trained on, which was like pre existing data. And then there is data that it goes and searches for very, very specifically. And it searches for information very different from a human. Like it's very, these long chain keywords. And, it always looks for recency. Like if I look for, hey, best boutique hotels in Tokyo, at the back end, it'll be a long keyword and it'll look for 2026. And if your page is not refreshed, it's not going to show you, or if your article is not there, it's not going to show you. So one of the things was, I think in the first generation that it started rolling out, right? Your brand had the most amount of information. I think your brand kind of gives you the lowest hanging fruit to get visible in AI because it can read you and it say, hey, use this information. And what we are seeing now is like a very interesting pie chart based on categories, right? So where folks come to, hey, Amos, is, hey, if I have like $300,000 of budget in a year, where should I deploy this marketing budget, right? So that I have to win AI search. And today, almost every single buying process is happening on AI search, especially for the small scale. What we're seeing is, if I look at a category like travel, for example, only 16% of what gets cited come from your own brand,
Okay.
and the rest of it come from other authoritative sources. Sometimes it's about news articles they published about you. Sometimes it's about like third party blogs, like maybe like Reddit. Then there are review sites, your Google reviews, your Trust Pilots, and so on. And then there's Wikipedia. Like Wikipedia has really, really high authority. So 65% comes from very high authority source. And what we are seeing more and more is like we run these experiments, right? Doing which media gets you the highest uptick more. It was a very interesting study, and what it said is that if you did one news article that came out of you that got published, you're likely to get cited by 228% compared to your own brand.
Oh no, this is
Yeah,
something I thought that should be true. Like even if I do maybe
yeah,
a decent news wire also, that should give me a more uptick than
yes.
something else.
100%. So what was happening is, I think once people started figuring out what AI is kind of quoting, people started hacking it, right? For example, like if it's reading your, okay, we'll make everything one kind of format. Oh, it's referencing Reddit for, reviews. Then everybody started farming Reddit comments. And now that authority we're starting to see is reducing in some categories, like quite a lot, as a matter of fact. So now what we're seeing is there's more and more push to go closer to authority, and that's where what we call as earned media suddenly become very exciting right now. It used to be very high level, top of the funnel, very strategic thing that somebody would do, but now it's an actual media element to get running.
Understood. If I go a little bit deep on this, like it is not the same SEO or repackaged SEO playbook. It's very different from that. So what are people getting wrong about it? Like, and I'm assuming there's a lot of advice as it is on LinkedIn, on YouTube.
Yeah.
what are the traps to avoid here? Like, what are people getting wrong?
Yeah, there's a little bit of truth to it, but there's also a lot of like opinions flying around. And if you open LinkedIn, you'll at least see like three on your feed at any point of time. I can tell you what is the truth to it. Okay, it's actually, if you rank, let's say, within the top 30 results, it means you have some basics in place. It means you have good pages, you built relevance. It means that you have like good data. So by correlation, you can assume that hey, you will show up on AI search, and most of the time that happens, right? But there's only, like I said, there's only that much that you can do by tweaking your website. Unfortunately, I think the opportunity for GEO means optimizing your website for AI search, right? So for GEO today, what we notice is a lot of people are not even there right now. They're building new website, and we're seeing this with a lot of lovable websites as well, that there's no crawler. Like if you ask, hey, what does this company do? And you give the URL, it'll tell, like ChatGPT will tell you that, hey, I'm seeing an empty HTML file. So the whole point is there's some fundamental technical stuff that needs to be in place. So you still need to have like a structure, you need a technical schema, you need to enable. There's a lot of controversy of whether you really need robots.txt and those kind of things now. But let's assume that it's required. So all of these technical things that help you to set up your pages and index it is very, very essential, right? So one of these parts is important because it structures your data. The second thing is, I think the way AI search, we don't control a lot. Right now, what we are seeing is that hey, if your title is close enough to the intent that the user is searching for, there is a high chance that you will get cited. What people are not understanding is it's no longer about ranking. If SEO was about ranking, this is about being relevantly picked by ChatGPT or Claude to kind of show you as a citation. Yeah, the second one is, of course, that just your own brand website doesn't matter. It's just 16% of your overall citations. A lot of other things need to happen. Like if I look at HeyAmos as an example, right? We got featured in Tech in Asia. Moment we got featured in Tech in Asia, our visibility like spiked because it considers Tech in Asia as a very high authority source, that if Tech in Asia is writing something about you, they've done like due diligence and you are for real. Otherwise, anybody can write, hey, what is the difference between HeyAmos and SEMrush? We also have a page on our website, by the way. Those tactics don't work anymore.
Understood. Understood. No, I think this is interesting. I think I'm just keep thinking like everyone is just trying to optimize their website to the largest degree. And I work with a lot of clients. And
Yeah.
thank you for this. It's if it is 1/8 of the job, that's not even 1/8, 16%, 1/6, closer to like 1/6. Like it's then we are leaving 5 out of 6 sources out there which could maybe do there could be a lower hanging fruit somewhere out there, maybe just working with a PR agency who does a better job for you. Picks
Yeah,
another
and
board.
it's a hard problem to get earned. The reason is, okay, this is my 2 cents, right? The easy part, maybe for the startups who got funded and started early to solve for brand websites, was because it was the lowest hanging fruit also, right? It's one that you have the most amount of control on. It's like if you want to get shown up on news and editorial, like they need to pick you. Like you can put things on a news wire. Yeah, Newswire also has some visibility right now, but if a journalist doesn't pick you, you don't get cited. It's very like that loop is very hard, right? If I look at third party blogs, you need to invest in a lot of these different third party blogs. Like for example, like we see G2 matters a lot, especially for SaaS businesses and B2B businesses. It's one of the most quoted sites, but you need to have more than a certain threshold of G2 reviews to get cited, right? And then there's Wikipedia. Wikipedia matters so much, but when we work with our customers, it's so hard to get accepted by Wikipedia because obviously they have a very high threshold and governance into the information that they let in. So it's actually a very hard problem to solve, and that's what we are trying to solve. What we have done is we've kind of partnered with a lot of these partners who can help you shorten the time frame to get to this point. And at the end of the day, it's still earned media, right? If the journalist doesn't pick your article, then, like the LLMs will thank us for bringing more earned high authority information in.
No, I get it, and I think this has been refreshing. I'm learning so much right now in this conversation than I have learned in the last 3 months from LinkedIn or internet for on this topic. I'll go ahead. Yeah. So if I had to fast forward to here, if we were sitting in 2027, what would the AEO GEO landscape look like? What parts of it do you think will get commoditized? What will become the real moat, and who would be the people who would win this?
Yeah, that's a super good question, right? Okay, honestly, there's so much happening as we talk right now. There's a lot of agentic commerce because I think when OpenClaw happened, suddenly what it did was it opened everybody's mind saying that, hey, I can run things autonomously. Like, I don't have to be the guardrail or gatekeeper. Maybe I can give it a prepaid wallet to go run Google Ads, for example, and it'll go do. So I think that's mass opportunities in agentic commerce. But for you to get shown up on e-commerce, it means you need to be you still need to be on that consideration set. So the foundation still needs to happen, right? And along with that, catalogs, everything has to be AI readable in a lot of ways. So that'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. Like, will it be similar to like Shopify, but on AI side? That'll be very interesting. Yeah, a couple of other things is, of course, now Stripe has integrated right now with OpenAI. They give you an MCP server with OAuth right now. We also use that sometimes. So this is getting built, right? The payments infrastructure is coming in. The second one is, of course, like right now, the B2B buying is going to get so competitive soon. As how are people going to find you, right? And this is going to be extremely important because if you're in a very high competitive category, finding you needs to matter a lot. And you'll no longer be a part of any consideration set. So, the question is, an agent is going to search for you and it'll decide that, hey, HubSpot is the right CI for your stage of the company and it'll go by HubSpot. There's no ways about it. The second one is, I feel, whole conversation we're having ranking is going to go away. Like, it's all going to be authority, it's going to be citation. It's about how B2B buyers are going to use LLMs in their journey. Who, like the earned media and PR companies, in my opinion, are going to have a brand new thing to sell and a brand new skill to upsell, which they better be quick on, and we are available. That's kind of how we laid the rails. Yeah,
Mhm.
man. And I think for me, the other one is the way we do attribution is going to change. So in the past, when we did SEO, right, there was page view, there was sessions, there was last click, there was, you can literally track who went from there in which funnel. That's going to collapse. So you need a whole other foundation to figure out how you're going to attribute. I read somewhere that like there has been a lot of cybersecurity incidents in the last couple of weeks, right? I'm sure you've heard happened with like a couple of them, like Vercel and so on. So I
Yeah.
feel there's an insane opportunity for cybersecurity, like in the age of AI, like those startups to come in. So that'll be very interesting. The bet that HeyAmos rides on is that earned media inventory will become one with, like, SCR will become giant industry,
Yeah.
and one needs the other. So that'll be very interesting.
No, I think, yeah, because as you said, your own media is 16% of the pie, so you need to increase your share of the pie, and then you do everything that's needed. Like from a G2, like from a B2B perspective, you need to have G2s, you need to have maybe third party platforms talk about you, whether it's a
Yeah.
partnership or it's just because you are so good, but you have to keep investing in all channels. You could have the best website and the best content, but if it's only 16% in the decision making of an AI,
Yeah.
maybe that's just not enough in today's world. That's how I look at
It's
it.
very category specific. You'd be surprised. Like when we look at marketplace as a category or e-commerce as a category, right? For them, the brand website matters a lot because as a source of truth, the product information. If I go into travel and B2B, it reduces so much. Like for some categories, it's as low as 6%. So the question is, there's a ceiling. Like you can publish 10,000 blogs, you won't see any impact.
Yeah.
There's a ceiling to it.
And
So yeah.
I just wish a lot of marketers, and I'll DM this episode because I speak to a lot of head of marketings and they are just like churning. They've created a machine to publish articles for all long tail keywords. But if this is what the truth is, and maybe their decision is based on half the information or whatever, because this is an evolving
Yeah.
space, like then you could be the number one for a 6% or 16% consideration set, and it's just not that enough. Like it's not just enough.
Maybe it's enough for now, right? Because maybe
Yeah.
your competitors are not there, but a year down the line, like it'll get
Yeah.
competitive. Everybody will do the same thing.
Yeah,
There's
like
also this other thing that my co-founder and I keep joking about, that there won't be a concept of websites. Like you don't need to create a website. You're already known by AI based on whatever you did. Like that would be a very interesting world.
I think we're still needed for the humans to finally come, not for the agent, not for the agent. The agent just needs an MCP, maybe I don't know, something or some version of an agent for an agent, but with the website for a human kind of a thing.
Seriously.
Nitya, you've operated in India, Malaysia, Singapore, and now you're building a company that's global. You have said that what works for the US cannot be pasted in India. Like, I think in today's world, if anyone is building a company or starting a company, it will be global from day one. But how do you think about like building a global company without losing focus? Because not each geography, not each customer, not everything is the same.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, this is my take, right? Not everyone will agree with it, but I feel like, I think the way, if you're launching a B2C, it's a whole other game, right? I feel like on a B2B side, there is a certain democratization of access to information and knowledge simply because of what AI and the internet has done so far. It's like when talk about HeyAmos in India, it's a very similar conversation to someone I'm talking to in the US. Like there is no barrier differentiation. I think the part that is more important for us is the focus side of things. Like the question is like you don't want to go too broad, right? Like I'm going to target every category, every industry. You want to pick your niche where you have like authority to win and you want to go win it really fast. That is one. This other one that has happened in the last like 12 months, I think Lovable has been a big case study, is you go distribution from day one. You don't worry about these old models that, hey, you can only do one thing at a time. The question is, hey, how can I do one thing but get access to 10,000 customers in one time? So you go distribution first. So we work with a lot of agencies. For example, I work with one agency, I onboard them. They use us for 70 clients. You know, then you can like and you can move really fast on that. So yeah, so B2C, there's definitely geographic barriers. It depends on who you're selling to, to understand your customer really well. If you're selling to B2B and you're very about your category and vertical, it is you can still be global but dominate like one vertical at a time. Unless you have like regulations, right? I often see like some of our peers are working on like stable coin applications, for example. Like regulation changes from country to country. So you are naturally forced to focus and grow. But our business is not like that.
Sounds good. I think you already touched about the differentiation. Like the differentiation is gonna be distribution to a certain degree in today's world. Like this is a theme that I keep hearing from a lot of people. Some of my previous guests also said that building may not be the biggest problem in today's world. I think distribution is gonna be. Like you just mentioned that you work with an agency who's taking it to 70 customers across
Yeah.
the globe. How should founders start thinking about like distribution from day one? Like, do you have an opinion on that specifically to B2B in today's world?
I think the metrics have changed, right? In the past, you can grow like 10% month on month if you're pre-seed. You find product market fit and you scale. But I think right now what we get measured at is almost at a seed level, saying that, hey, there's this every investor meeting you go to, there's always this one example that comes. It's about this guy who vibe coded a startup and sold it for $1 billion, and they're like, hey, if one person can do this, like, what is stopping you? But he figured out the distribution, right? I can see a lot of people kind of focus on, okay, how will you sell? How can you sell this in the shortest period of time without hiring capital, without hiring sales guys, without hiring like, and I think that's kind of where you need to crack. Why it's a hard problem is because I think our attention span as consumers is shrinking a lot. And I think that's why you see so much on LinkedIn. Like many folks are trying to reach you and trying to sell you their product. There's no easy way out, but you have to find like distribution, satellite distribution in every single market. Like one person who will get you to 70 other people, or getting published in one place kind of gets you access to a lot of folks. So there's no good playbook right now. We're all figuring it out. So for us, agencies actually, we have partnered with a lot of PR agencies globally, and they kind of take us to more clients as they scale.
Agreed, 100%. Like, I think this is, I think I'll just have one question and maybe we can wrap up. And this is like the favorite question that I ask everyone.
Okay.
There's a lot of like the phrase death of SaaS. You're building still, I would still call your product in a SaaS category as the category still remains it. What's your honest take on the evolution, I would say, of SaaS rather than calling it death of SaaS? Where do you think it's heading?
Okay, definitely like tokenized consumption based. But, to be honest, we as a company, we don't need to be SaaS, but SaaS is the most palatable to users and their finance teams
Hmm.
currently right now. So we have a couple of modes already ready in the ways that we can sell to users, right? Like it could be pay as you go, it could be tokenized consumption, it could be over a period of time, right? Because let's say for you to improve AI visibility and get access to things could be as and when you need me. Maybe you can plug into me, I run autopilot, work off a retainer, whatever that looks like, right? There are many ways to do business. But what we realize is you need to make life easy even for the finance team. We see a big difference between where all the conversations you hear on X and LinkedIn and what, and if you go tell this to a finance team and if you're going to increase work for them and you're going to make them reconcile more, they'll be like, I will pay more money to your SaaS product and pay a monthly fee
Hmm.
than you giving me this extra work. And this is very consistent, right? So I think we are also waiting and watching, and we always experiment with trying different ways of selling, and we kind of get an understanding of where things are in the market right now. So I think definitely we're moving there. The finance teams and enterprise customers or agency finance teams, we need to make life easy for them also in a way that they can track, they can execute your tokenized experience that based on your usage, I'm going to only charge you for that much. Then for them to reconcile that they are built correctly is going to be is a nightmare right now. So I think people forget about the finance guys at the end of it. So the payments needs to catch up there as well with all the transparency and reconciliations. So yeah, so right now we are SaaS, but we don't need to be in 3 months. We're always flexible about that.
Got it. Got it. I think just last question before we wrap up. There will be a lot of people who would be listening to this outside of the AEO, SEO, like from one operator to other. If there is someone where you were maybe a year ago, what would be your advice to those people who are right now maybe considering taking a leap of faith and trying to build something of their own? What would be your 2 cents to
If
them?
you're And my 2 cents is if you're already considering, it means you have an appetite for a little bit of risk and being in uncertainty. I think what it's very important is even if you choose to not go in this path or you find another job, you're going to be a very different person at the end of it. You're going to have so much agency. The way you problem solve, the way you decide what to focus on is going to be so different. The way you prioritize problems, the way you prioritize what you need is going to look so different. So for me, I would say you're better off for trying than not having tried, but I also realize it's not for everyone. Some people like a steady,
Got
stable way of working. I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's a little risky in this time, but there's really nothing wrong with that. If you like that predictability, then that's okay. Then maybe this is not the path for you. But if you're hungry to stay ahead of the curve, to like really expand and see where all the abilities that you can try out, I promise you'll come out a different person, even if you decided to not incorporate your company just for that reason. Yeah.
No, I think this has been really, really amazing. I think we covered about Bangalore startup ecosystem, working in Southeast Asia, to Antler entrepreneurship, to going in depth of AEO. Hopefully there is more request to go in depth by the audience. Maybe we could do
Anytime.
that. Yeah, maybe we could do like a live demo or something
Yeah,
in the future as well.
sure.
Building in today's era to everything. I think Nitya just been really, I'm just honored and humbled for you to spending. The recording ticker is almost at 1 hour 20 minutes. But
Oh
really,
my
thank
God,
you
we
for
have
doing.
chatted. Thanks for this, Akash. Like, I want to hear so much on your journey as well. I think you've done some very interesting things. And I can see that you constantly put yourself out there, right? Like out of your comfort zone quite regularly. So, and I know you've been vibe coding quite a lot. So I want to hear a lot of that as well. But thank you
Yeah.
for being such a gracious host.
Thank you everyone who stayed till the end. This is Akash, and once again, Nitya, thank you for joining
Thank you
from
so much.
Singapore. This is GTM and AI Operator Show. Stay tuned for our next guest. If you know someone who you think should be part of the conversation, please drop their name in the comments. Thank you. Thank you once again.